Okay. All indicators are saying that I am live and in living color. Well, not in living color, because all you'll see is right now is the opening slide about the heritage audio and which is sonically more accurate. We're going to talk about accuracy today. We got a lot to cover. So I need a top. A top. This is not simple. What is it? But I need a top. I don't spill. All right. Yeah. So who is in the house today? Who is in? Who is in? Who is in? Who is in? All right. Which is more accurate? The Heritage HA73 or the Warm Audio WA73? I'm doing a roll call right now, and I need to know who's here. So who's here? Who is in the house? Got 7 likes. Dell mixed it. What is up, my brother? Hope you are well. Hope everything is doing good. San Diego, Diary, what's going on, man? Glad to see you all are here. We got a lot to cover. I'm telling you, it's going to be a doozy. I got to put to rest a few things that we have been mulling around with, folks. Sort of second service sermon is going on. I guess you're right, my brother. You know, 1 second, guys. Yeah, you got the second. Pete the Gurner is in the house. The greatest guitar player in the UK. You don't know who he is, you need to know who he is. So y'all better go and check out the Gurner 1. We got a lot to cover. We're going to be talking about products. Well, at least one of the products we'll be discussing today is from the other side of the pond here in the US. We're talking about the Neve 1073. So as soon as I get my water, I will go on camera, because, you know, brother can have some crusty lips if he don't have any water. So we're all good. All systems are go. We have a lot to cover today, and I don't want to keep you too long. For Dell Mixed It, you know what I'm saying, right? So, hello everybody. How y'all doing? I am doing well. Just make sure that I got everything that I need to get going. So, let's talk. What's happening with everybody? See what's going on in your world, and what's happening? Talk to me. Definitely eager to hear your thought on the ethos, as well as I love my Heritage Ram 5000 monitor controller and my Warm Mics WA412. Okay, yeah. I mean, listen. You know what I hope to put to rest today is the whole debate. You guys, I know that have been on my channel for a while, know that I've done several almost semi-scientific in some respects tests on the Neve, on the Heritage, as well as, well, the Heritage as of late, but the Warm Audio WA73. And this is not a video that's going to talk about which is better or what's better or which I think you should buy. It's not about that, because anyone who has been following me for any duration of time already knows that my opinion on these products is pretty much based on use. It's a tool, you know, because you could take the greatest of the three and put it in the hands of a person with no skill, and it's going to sound like crap, because, you know, they have no musical talent, or they have no skill in terms of musicianship. So, you know, throughout history, true musicians have proven that it's not about the tools, it's about the music. In the end, it's always about the music. So for those who have been, for the last 3 years, believe it or not, guys, I'm telling you, for the last 3 years since I've done that video, that people have been reaching out with either snide comments or rude comments about, oh, well, you're a fanboy or this. It's not about that, because it's a tool for me, but for some other people, it gets down to which camp are you in? So I'm hoping that today we can finally put to rest. And I'm telling you, I spent a lot of time researching this topic, deeply researching, because most of the youngsters, when they are making equipment purchases nowadays, they have pretty much the pick of the litter. When I was a kid getting started in this business, I didn't have it, the way most of you all have it right now. Whereas you can go, and you could choose whether you want to use a warm audio product or a heritage audio product. It is totally up to you. You have the pick of the litter, whereby when I was coming along, it was like, what studio are you going to work in order to get the job done? And it was either a SSL room, a Neve room, or an API room. Depending on the genre of music that you were working in, you chose one of 3 rooms to work in. Okay. So here comes these companies that are coming along with these products. And now it's like, kids have the pick of the litter, and all of it is legitimately good. They all of the 3 of the Neve 1073, the current iterations of the warm audio WA73 and of the heritage audio HA73, all of them will give you the requisite 80 decibels of gain that you are looking for. So if all you're trying to do is amplify a signal, pick. It gets down to that. But there's a fork in the road, that we've come to, because I'm at the point, I'll be honest with you. Well, I've stopped commenting. I've stopped responding to people because it's telling me that it's becoming like sort of a divisive topic. If I bought one over the other, and I'm going to show you all some of the responses that I've gotten in order to reinforce my point. Okay. So without further ado, let's see some comments really quick. Dyer said, I'm still making payments on a single shelf for channel. That shelf for channel was no joke, man. I kind of likey, Yeah, man. Okay, so let's get into it. I'm going to be looking back and forth, so I'm not ignoring you. Let's start out with the statement of purpose. Today's video is an analysis from a common sense perspective. It is not an attempt to declare one brand better than the other. To the contrary, I will discuss how I approach purchases and why you should utilize data. Let's read that again. I will discuss how I approach equipment purchases and why you should utilize data to consider how a particular purchase might affect both your sound and your workflow. Period. Point blank. Full stop. Period. We're going to stop with this whole, you're a fanboy and all this other. And not that bothers me, but it's the fact that it's coming from an unintelligent place if that's the only gun that you got to fire, if you will. I'm trying to educate you based on experience. I'm not some fly-by-night person who was just on YouTube randomly blabbing. You understand? I'm talking about products that I either have used or I possess. And I feel like it's my responsibility to give you the best information. Now, what you do with that information beyond this point is totally up to you. But it's my responsibility to provide you with accurate information. So that's where we're going to go today. So without further ado, these are biscuits. Something that we all can relate to, whether you're on this side of the pond or in my brother Pete's side in the UK. We all love biscuits. If you don't love biscuits, you got a problem. If you've never had a biscuit, welcome to what they look like. Now you ought to taste them. Now, biscuits are oftentimes served at this time of the year, whether it's Thanksgiving or during the Christmas holiday. And if you want your biscuits to look like this, you have to follow a recipe. Stay with me, guys. This is important. I can't make it any more simpler than this. We like biscuits. Biscuits have a recipe. Now, with that recipe come the ingredients. All right. With the ingredients come instructions. Deviating, okay, from any one of these details will yield you that. You cannot serve that at Christmas dinner. Okay? So it is important that if you want your biscuits to look like this, that you follow the recipe to the letter. Stay with me. Okay? This is a Neve schematic. For those of you who know what schematics are, they are a recipe. A recipe for how to put something together, what parts you need to source, what components you need to utilize, etc., etc., etc. Rupert Neve wrote this recipe. This is an actual schematic made by the man himself. After this stream is over, what you can do is come back to this area, screenshot it, and examine it at your perusal. So with that in mind, let me go to the next slide. This was the original video that got it all started about 3 years ago for me. And it wasn't a matter of which is better. It was, for me, it was which is more functional. And I explained that in that video. At least I thought I explained myself well. Which is more functional for me? For me, having the front panel connectivity was more functional at the time. For me, Heritage could not justify the extra $100 spent for less functionality. For me, that was for me. So I returned it at the time. Okay, not because it was a bad unit, but because it was not functioning. It was a tool that wasn't functioning the way I wanted the tool to function. I explained that several times over. But after you get done explaining something over and over again, you have to retreat to the fact that, okay, well, maybe I need to just take some self-examination, and just, go over the video again, see where maybe there was a miscommunication of information or whatever the case may be. And as I had been going through it, I figured, hey, well, it's a matter of people wanting to be into two camps. And here's proof positive of that. I went to because one of the debates was about the power supply. And, I'm not a big fan of these, big giant brick power supplies that got to sit on the floor. Having gone through that years ago with several products by Alesis and other companies, I figured like this: if you can build a better power supply within the unit, then it's good for everybody. It saves on space. You don't have to worry about tripping over it, etc., or accounting for it if you're doing it on a permanent install. So I go to their this particular video and I make a comment where this man supports his reasoning behind an external power supply. And I thought he did a pretty good job. So I said, this is by far the best way to demonstrate the reasoning behind a decision with test equipment because tests are empirical. Behind that comes some troll and says, but you were on your channel downing the Heritage over the WA73. I'm going to go and tell people you told them WA was better than the Heritage channel. I'm like, okay, come on now. Come on now. You all were very clear on the criticisms that I was presenting at the moment. But the fact still remains, if we're getting back to our original point, that this is the recipe. So we're going to start there. This is the recipe that man himself wrote. Now, if you want your biscuits to come out correct, you got to follow the man's recipe. This is the schematic that I've decided to break down in greater detail. I outlined what's where. Now, for those of you who have never looked at a schematic, don't understand what they're looking at, this is for your education. The front two, you see, are input transformers. It's a very simple circuit. And API circuits are designed a similar way. Very simple. That's why the sound is so pure. Input transformers, where it says gain section, that's the gain switch that'll give you up to 80 dB of input gain. I noted the output transformer and I noted the EQ section. I triangulated it. Please come back to this section of the video and review it if you need to. Because when you look at a unit like this, they follow the formula to the letter. And why wouldn't they? This is a Neve product, right? But one has to ask themselves, okay, well, I can't afford the DPX or the SPX. They're very affordable units. What are affordable options within my budget? You have both the Warm Audio WA73 and you have the HA73. But when it gets right down to it, somebody followed this schematic to the letter to get their biscuits to look like that. Now let's jump right into it. Here's the Warm. Here's the Heritage. And like I said to you before, I'm not going to be before you long. I want to give you education. And the education I'm going to give you is coming from the perspective of audio. Now, one of the things that I'm be honest with you, when I did the comparison between the Neve, the Neve, the Warm, as well as the Focusrites, one of the things that I struggled with the Warm was phase coherence. Getting the left and right channels to constantly agree. That's important if you're working in a stereo realm. Many of you that watch the video where I was comparing all of the preamps and the quality of this stereo image were saying like there's something up with the way the Warm is tracked. And I agree. There's a way to justify that only if you take the unit to the bench and test it. I can't explain it. I can only tell you that they used quality components, and Warm did. Heritage, they use quality components. I'm not a big fan of surface mounted components, but they did. But when it came down to that test, when I was utilizing the Focusrite as well as the Warm, as well as the Neve preamps, there was a phase coherence issue that I kept having. So I'm like, okay, well, maybe it was just due to the manufacturer. But for some people, that's unacceptable, especially if this is going to be your only preamp. And I get that. I respect that because everyone doesn't have money to go out. Okay, well, this is a problem. I'm going to go out and buy another one just because, so that much I do. I accept and I respect that. But if we're going to compare one to the other, we can only compare apples to apples, period. And it gets down to which of these, followed the recipe to the letter. I'm going to give you a minute to ask any questions, and then after that, I'm going to give you the audio example. I'm going to play for you the audio example because the back end of this discussion, if you will contain any comments that will reinforce the discussion. Because unless you're just independently wealthy, you're not interested in going out and every new item that comes out with audio, you're not interested in going out there and purchasing. And that, for me, that's just, wasteful. We're in a throwaway economy. I don't like this, I'm going to toss it and go buy something else. But if we just look at it from the perspective that these things are tools, I think there'll be somewhat of a shift. Okay, so let's go to some questions really quick. Mr. Pirate Brain, what's up, man? Okay, Tracklight Productions. Is that the 273 EQ or two individual WA73s? Now, if you're talking about phase coherence with regards to, if your question is coming rather from the perspective of, was I commenting on two separate WA73s or one unit, a 273, I really think that that's not relevant. And I'm going to tell you the reason why. Quality control is quality control, period. Point blank, full stop. I ought to be able to go to any unit and bench test it with test equipment and get the same result, whether it's a monophonic signal or a stereophonic one, regardless, because the quality of manufacture that you provided. And that's the one thing that a lot of these companies like a Manley, like Heritage for that matter, name another company like BAE, they know the quality of the manufacturer. It's hands-on. The problem is if you source things out for manufacture to a third-party assembly operation, and you don't have a QC guy standing over these guys, browbeating them to make sure that they maintain your standard, at this point, anything goes. It's like, here, take the ingredients and leave Pookie in them to make your biscuits without checking that they set the oven at the correct temperature. Who does that? So whether it's a monophonic or a stereophonic unit is pretty much not relevant. The recipe that you gave these guys, the components that you gave them are top notch. But if they go and they snip one of the copper wires an eighth of an inch shorter, copper is a resistive material. It's going to compromise your sound. And if you're not over them, say, hey, wait a minute, you took too much copper off the lead there, it's going to shape this. It may be not drastic, but maybe that's the difference in why I'm having this phase coherence issue. The devil is in the details. Period. Point blank, full stop. I ought to be able to trust my tools, whether it's a hammer with a maple handle or a hammer with an ash wood handle. I ought to be able to trust it. I'm going to be able to hammer this nail without the thing flying off when I draw backwards. It's a tool. So what's wrong with being able to trust your tools, is my point. Let's see, how long are we running so far? 25 minutes. I'm about to get into the audio example, and then on the back end, we'll have more discussion. Okay, so let's take some more. Mr. Pirate, I already got the 270 EQ based on your recommend. No, based on what you need. I never recommended it. I said that it's a tool. Now, how you use your tool and how I use my tool are two different things. I don't rely on EQ that much. I rely on the mic to give me what I'm looking for. I'm not saying the unit is bad. I'm saying the unit is of a quality manufacture. Okay? I'm saying the unit will give you the 80 decibels of gain that you are looking for. That is the BAE, that is the Heritage, that is the Neve, and that is the Warm. They all are going to bench test to give you 80 dB. Because following that little iota of the recipe is not difficult. The devil is in the details. So this is what we're kind of like putting to rest today. And you're going to hear for yourself. I'm not saying, if you notice that there's a problem. Okay, I'm not going to say that right now. I want you to listen to what I put together in its most simplistic way. Then we'll have a discussion on the back end. Take a minute and just listen to this really quick, okay? Here we go. The first example was the Heritage HA73, and the second was the Warm Audio WA73. Now, there's a clear difference between the two. If you didn't hear it, you're going to have to go back on the playback and listen to it. And this is something I want to show you really quick. Okay. If you look at this schematic again, and look at the EQ section before, as I had triangulated it, right? According to Rupert Neve's instructions, the unit in the lower left-hand corner was to have a 3-inductor EQ section. I'm going to say that again. According to the person who wrote the recipe, remember the biscuits? according to the person who wrote the recipe for this preamp design, of which it was a channel strip when it was first conceived, he was very explicit as to how the EQ section was to be designed. The devil is in the details. He said you are to have 3 inductors, and in the lower left-hand corner of this schematic is the EQ points for those inductors. There it is. There it is. So if you want to talk about whose biscuits came out the best, right? There's only 2 designs we're talking about. We're not talking about the actual 1073 because, of course, they followed it to the letter. But look at these 2. I'm going back and forth. You're supposed to have 3 inductors. 3 inductors. 3 inductors. And if you know anything about inductors, if you have quality ones, they sound pleasant. The reason why Rupert Neve wanted inductor-based EQ because it sounds pleasant when it saturates with a particular frequency. Now, when you're listening to those 2 examples, there's an obvious problem with one of the units in the lower frequencies, which can potentially, if you're using it in a mastering or a 2-bus sweetening circumstance, it can compromise your sound. It can cause you to have phase coherence issues. So you have to keep that in mind. That doesn't make the unit bad. That just makes the unit sensitive in a particular way, for better or for worse. Only you can determine that. I can't determine that because my mileage may vary from yours. Maybe I don't want to saturate, the unit in that fashion. Maybe you do, and that's a problem for you. Everybody's approach to using this tool is different. I get that. Both units, Heritage and Warm, have Carnhill transformers. Check. Right? On the input and on the output. Check. Both will give you the requisite 80 decibels of gain that you are looking for. Check. However, let me just point this out to you really quick. It's a fact that Rupert Neve was very specific about the EQ section as outlined in the schematic. Lower left-hand corner on the playback, you can look for it yourself. There is no longer an argument to be had about which manufacturer followed the recipe to the letter. The answer is clear. And I am a Warm audio user. The answer is clear. He is the only one who used the correct 3 inductor EQs. He said it himself. There's no way to get this EQ section to work properly. Go to Heritage Audio's YouTube page and hear the man say it for himself. There's no way, and he has proven that. There's no way to get the EQ section to work properly unless you followed this man's instructions. Okay? He said you're supposed to have 3 EQs? Well, guess what? Unless you followed it the way he expected you to. Hang on a second. Let me get back to the slide. I'm trying to find it. Well, the point is, because now I'm coming apart. The point is, in order to get it to work the way if the muse, and if you want to use basketball as an analogy, God rest his soul, Kobe Bryant's muse was Michael Jordan. He patterned himself after Michael. He probably studied hours and hours and hours of tape as to how Michael did what he did and was successful and copied it. The only way to get your biscuits to come out nice and fluffy like this is to follow the recipe to the letter. And the only one who followed the recipe to the letter was this guy. That doesn't make Warm's product bad. It just places limits on what you can do with that tool. Now, if that's a problem for you, you got to find a new tool. It's not a problem for me. I still own mine. One is for sale, only just one, because I still like the product. And the only reason why the one is for sale is because it's not being utilized. And I don't like having equipment just laying around, and I could turn that into money in the moment. For the moment, and you guys know the reason why. But the point is that only you know how this tool is going to work for and with you or against you. And if you have an issue with how a tool is functioning for the job you're calling it to do, you have to make that change. You have to make that change. I'm not saying one is bad. I'm just saying one followed the recipe to the letter. And Heritage Audio is that one. He said it himself. And one of the things he had commented on was the fact that in order to get the EQ section to work properly, you need the 3, and he used the 3 proper inductors. If you use a particular inductor, or if you use cheap inductors, if they saturate, and in this case, I think the inductors that Warm used, and first of all, they didn't use 3. Okay, that's mistake number 1. And mistake number 2, they used probably cheap ones, and when they saturated, they didn't saturate pleasantly in the bottom end. There's a stabbing at a particular frequency because, you recorded it at too loud of a volume, so therefore distorted. No, notice that just a particular frequency had an issue. And that's not the first time that happened with me, with this particular unit. I was recording upright bass with the Warm one time. And a particular frequency that the bass player had. Now, if you know anything about upright bass, you know how big the body is. When he hit a particular note, it would get this nasty growl. So I thought it was me. Like, okay, well, maybe the mic's too close. Maybe the mic is just distorting. But once you question it twice, it's like, no, this is suspect at this point. So I think if Warm would go into our iteration 2 or version 2 of this particular product and use maybe or source inductors from a different manufacturer, maybe the results would be different. But that's not saying the unit is bad. I'm saying the unit is limited in its use for a particular frequency. If you're a bass player, beware. That's all I'm saying. If you are a cellist, beware. If you are a baritone singer or a tenor singer, this particular unit is sensitive to the bottom end. The inductors don't handle the bottom end well. It will give you the requisite gain that you need on any type of microphone. It will give you quiet gain. The inductors for the bottom frequencies do not saturate well. Let's take some questions. Okay, let's look. What about the Focusrite ISA versus the Warm? The ISA is a much more cleaner preamp. I have successfully recorded, again, upright bass, and not less successfully with the Warm. I have successfully recorded upright bass with the ISA and like the cleanliness that it gave me. It was a jazz session. I really like the way the ISA handled the bass over the Warm, So I hope that, and generally you should expect the same results if you're recording vocals as well, because you're going to have proximity effect if you have a vocalist that leans into the microphone. You're going to have that. So you have to account for that. You have to account for how the mic is going to handle those frequencies and what it might or might not do to your sound. I'm just asking you guys to be cognizant of the fact that these are tools. And you should be critical and use data to decide which tools are going to work for you and how and why. If you're not a reader, you can't just blindly trust the word of anyone else. You have to take the item. That's why I always advise people, if you're buying it, buy it from somebody who has a 30-day return policy. Because once you get it in your space, it might not work for you. And that doesn't make the unit bad. It means it's a unit that just doesn't work in the fashion that you expect it to. You should have expectations as an artist. There's not an artist who doesn't want to have a particular sound or be known for something for some kind of way. So why shouldn't you be particular about the tool that's going to give you the sound you're looking for? So if you like the sound of the cleanliness of the ISA, go with that. If you like the warm, you go with that. The choice is pretty much yours. Okay. Gurners. Yes. Here's a comment from Gurner 1. The WA-EQ section is perhaps not so sweet as the Neve, but it works great on bass guitar for a subtle boost. That's true. The high can sound a little harsh when boosted. See, and again, with the high frequencies, what he did, they deviated from the plan. They gave you 2 additional frequencies because I have had to return a warm WA73-EQ in the past, one that I had purchased, because the 12K and the 16K weren't working. So I had to return it for that purpose. So if we're looking at comparing apples to apples, then you got to look at the schematic. You got to go to the guy who wrote the book. And if the guy who wrote the book said, make your biscuits like this, and you go and you don't add eggs to the recipe, then what do you expect? You're going to get flat biscuits. You know what I mean? I can't break it down no more simpler than that. It's a recipe. A schematic is a recipe. Any one of you can go to that schematic, source the parts, it's not complicated, and build a 1073. It's not a matter of, well, will it sound like a Neve 1073? No, the question is, will it give me the requisite 80 decibels of gain that a Neve preamp is known for? The requisite 80 dB of quiet, clean gain. Ask that question. And if the answer is no, then no, you kind of like deviated from the recipe. Because if you crank it up to, 45 dB and suddenly you hear, you blew it somewhere. Something's not right. And you got to go and you have to bench test. Okay, what resistor is giving me this problem? Locate it, desolder the resistor, solder another one back in, and now at 45 dB, guess what you get? Quiet gain. You got to use data. You must use data. And it's not about which is better. They both are good. They both use quality components throughout. Fact. They both use Carnhill transformers. Fact. Only one used 3 proper inductors. That is the heritage. And because of that, only one has the right to say, I followed the recipe to the letter. That would be Heritage Audio. And this is a person who had an opinion about Heritage based on functionality, not sound ever. How it's going to work for me. I'm quick plug. When I'm working, I don't have time to be fiddling around. Time is money. And if I got somebody paying me, they ain't got no time. I got to fiddle around, going on, let me see how I do. There's no time for that. These people are paying you by the hour to do a job. So your tools have to be quick, get you access to what you need done fast and in a hurry. Because a client is not interested in, oh, by the way, I'm having a problem. They're not interested in that. I've been down that road with equipment that I've purchased in the past. And you know what happened to it? It got chucked straight out the window. I can't function like this. I can't have a client get angry at me because my equipment is not functioning the way they expect it to. And you should expect your equipment to function well for you. So let's look at some more questions. I don't know who these people are. I'm about to tell you right now. You need to stop putting Vast Tech up in the comments. Okay? Stop promoting on my channel. Don't make me block you. If I see it one more time, I'm blocking you. That's enough. Knock it off. All right? Let's take some more questions. Stop. That's 2 people that did this. Knock it off. All right? Nicholas Flores says, can the distorted frequency be tamed and made more pleasant in the mix? Nicholas, what I would do, I wouldn't approach it with that in mind. To answer your question, what I would do, I would record it without any EQ, add the EQ in as a plugin, like that. Okay? I would add the EQ in as a plugin in the future. I would record it clean, add my EQ on the back end. Okay? Hope that helps. So, Calvin T, I'm an amateur radio operator, built a bit of amps in the past. Built a lot of amps, radios, and I love your emphasis on components. They are key. That's true. Oh, okay. This is, I don't know who can see the perfect example. Many of you don't know, or maybe many of you do, that Rupert Neve's first consoles were built for broadcast. And what was very important for broadcast was quietness, clean signal, because you're broadcasting radio frequencies that are already inherently on some level noisy. So imagine you building a transmitter or a console that's going to add noise to an already noisy AM medium. Now, I'm sure when Rupert Neve started, AM radio was the bomb diggity. And you're talking about in the 70s. So keeping the main thing. Yes. Okay, John, 450. What's up, brother? Hope you're doing well. Good to see that you've checked in. Okay, so any more questions? We already know 2 things. My statement of purpose for this video was that. Take a minute to review. It's not an analysis. Today's is an analysis from a common sense perspective, not an attempt to declare one brand better than the other. Take a minute to look at that. So for those of you who want to, come at it from a perspective of, oh, well, I made a comment about this. I make tons of comments, but hopefully it's always from a perspective of having used it or having experienced something similar or a circumstance similar. Okay? Here's V3Z. I returned a WA73-EQ for high frequency noise. These are users, folks. Some people, I'm not big on using EQ, but for those of you who are, these are people who are users who are saying the same thing. The man was correct when he said the only way to get the thing to function properly like the real deal is to use the proper 3 inductors. And Heritage did. That does not, again, I must reiterate, that does not make it bad, the warm audio bad. I still own mine. I now own a Heritage as well. In my downtime, I've had a chance to put it through its paces in greater detail. The proof is in the pudding. I'm not going to argue with fact. You can't argue with fact. You cannot argue with fact. Some people just want to argue for argument's sake. But there's a fact. Rupert Neve, fact number 1, he wrote the recipe. Fact number 2, he said use inductors in the EQ section. Fact number 3, the man said that he wanted his EQ points to be particularly this. Look at the schematic. Fact number 4, only one of them did it exactly like the recipe, and that was Heritage. These are facts. Now, if you're just looking for clean 80 dB of gain, they both will give you that, but only one EQ is more musical than the other. Fact. There's only one that's going to give you a more pleasant. And this was just a, YouTube representation of, how the EQ sounds. So that stabbing and flubbery that you hear at the bottom end with that, I'm like, I set the EQs, by the way, were set exactly the same. Exactly the same EQ points. So you're getting the same thing from both. The same signal, the same gain, the same everything. So, I mean, if anybody that wants to debate beyond this is just looking for a fight. But I mean, I'm not looking to fight. I'm looking to show you empirically that this unit followed the recipe to the letter. So let's go to Nicholas Flores. Okay. And Track Light Productions, I'm going to get to your comment as well, because yes, you are raising another good point. Sorry, should have been more specific. I was referring to the scenario where you were recording a bass player and didn't notice it till after the bass player wasn't available for a re-record. No, what happened was, let me give you the whole deal. He's the type of bassist that when he plays, he moves. Now, if you know how big the body of a upright bass is, if you're on axis, and this is showing you how if you move off axis with a microphone from the F hole, it can change the frequency response. You guys need to experiment with mics like that. You want to change how the characteristic of a mic sounds? Move it. So while he was playing, he was moving and playing at the same time and leaned in. The F hole leaned in to a already sensitive mic. So quite naturally, if you have a little bit of gain on the bottom end, just a tad bit, and you emphasize it more by leaning and giving a proximity effect to the microphone, it's going to amplify that particular sound. Now, the sound can saturate pleasantly or unpleasantly. But because they used a not so great inductor in the EQ, it gave an unpleasant sound. They had several takes to choose from, so never go for just one take. I don't know how you function as a producer or a recorder. Always go for more than one. And if you notice that there's an error or a problem, you could always go back and punch it in. You know that. So I'm not telling you anything that you don't know already, but no, it wasn't like, oh snap, I noticed it after the fact. No, this happened during the recording. I noticed it. I raised it as an issue. We went back, re-recorded the track, and we had more than one take to choose from, so just standard practice. That's all. But yes, I agree. My original thought was just use a pre-in EQ via the plugin. No, I mean, just saying okay, here's a good idea. Why I advocate using, this is for Nicholas, and this is a little nugget for anybody who wants to know how I generally save myself out of pinches. On the patch bay, you can mult out of the top into two locations. So sometimes I'll mult out and take the signal from out the top and put it somewhere else. It doesn't disrupt the flow to the original signal, because of how the patch bay is wired in a half normal situation. So if you mult out and you go into, maybe you could mult the signal out and take the multed signal out into another preamp, say the ISA for that matter, just to get an idea of how it might sound in two locations. It's up to you, And in some circumstances, you could mult out to a EQ track, right, with the WA73, mult out to an un-EQ'd version on a separate track altogether, so that you have a choice of two, a clean version and a not so clean version. It's up to you. I mean, when you start to think about ways of safeguarding yourself in a pinch, you become a little bit more creative. To answer your question, that's a way to do it, so that this way you always have two versions of the same thing. You could come clean out of the ISA into one channel, take that multi signal out into the WA73 and EQ the daylights, or distort the daylights out of it and use the distorted track here and blend between the two. There's more than one. That's why I use patch bass, because it gives me that, in a half normal situation, it gives me that additional signal that I could send anywhere. I could compress it. I could do anything I want to a multed signal. Okay. So I hope that helps. And if you have any further questions, just reach out. We'll chat offline. I don't want to be too long before anyone. So let's go to Darius Smith. What did I miss? You're going to have to watch the playback, my brother. But I'm glad you were able to check in, brother. Okay. And I want to go back to Tracklight Productions said, have I tried the Chameleon? You know what, man? I'm going to tell you, the Chameleon Labs, I think this guy is the American version of Rupert Neve. I reached out to this guy over and over and over and over again. They don't respond to my emails, man, because this guy winds his own inductors for his preamps, and I heard good things about it. But I'm like, I wanted to try the product. I reached out asking for they don't respond. So that's any indication of customer service, hey. If that's any indication of how they treat their customers, let the buyer beware. But I think, he's very, how can I describe him as a manufacturer? He's into what he's doing. He's like the American version of Rupert Neve, because this guy talks with passion about transformers, about inductors, and these are the building blocks of making a quality product. You can source crap from China. You can source crap components, resistors and capacitors from China. There are companies, I'm not going to name any of them, that do that and build crap. I've used it on a gig and it's crapped out on me. Nevermore. But you can also go to companies like Mouser and source quality components to build a quality unit. The choice is yours when you build. What ingredients are you going to put in this product? It gets down to the manufacturer, Oh, no, I'll troll them for you. No, don't troll nobody, man. Trolling is not cool, man. But, when you're doing this, man, it's par for the course. At some point, you got to get thick skin and move on. Because some people are just people. It takes all kind to make the world, as my mother used to say. But let's go back. Oh, okay, here's V3Z. In other words, if you go warm, go with the non-EQ versions. Good point, sir. I'm thinking about checking out the gold. No, do not. Okay, listen. Don't mess with golden. I was just trying to be indiscriminate, or rather, discriminate. Maybe I'm using the wrong word, trying to be all deep, but I was trying to be a little bit more on the down low, if you will, about which company doesn't use great components. They're trying to build a quality product. I get it. But when you're in a market where the market leader is doing things, it's like bringing the worst defender against Michael Jordan. Michael Jordan is Michael Jordan. You can't bring some little whack defender on Michael Jordan. He's going to bake you. And there was very few people that could guard Michael Jordan. Period. You remember how he scorched Dan Marley because everybody thought Dan Marley was the guy who could defend Michael Jordan, and he humiliated Dan Marley. So, the fact is that Neve, AMS Neve, is Michael Jordan. You know what I mean? You can't bring some substandard product to the market and call it that. Which means you got to be clicking on all cylinders, and maybe certain manufacturers, that being Heritage Audio, was cognizant of that fact. Facts, as they say, can be stubborn things. So if you want to be able to commit or compete in a market where the market leader is like killing it, you got to come and start killing it. Or you're going to be deemed a poser, if you will, someone who's trying to put together. And for some people, okay, maybe spending $399 on a preamp is what they want to do. But expect some compromises if you're going to just drop a little bit of money. At least Warm Audio straddles comfortably both sides of the spectrum rather. So if you're not a purist and if you're not a critic, and if you're using these products for the sake of using them as tools, then you have the pick of the litter. I'm saying don't, or be very discriminating about which companies use what in their biscuits. Because I'm telling you, I had a Golden Age preamp crap out on a client gig and I vowed never again. Never again. Because that's somebody else's money you playing with now. You think a client want to hear, oh, excuse me, thank God I had backups that solved that problem instantaneously. But if that was your only preamp and you've already taken this client's money or the deposit for the job, guess what you're about to do? Give that client back their money until you solve your issue. So let the buyer beware. Okay. Pharaoh, I had the Golden Age projects, and the and they were pretty good. Good for you. Good for you. You know, I'm just sharing. If it's working for you, God bless you. I am not mad at you. I'm saying my experience with somebody else's money, it died on the gig. And I was like, excuse me, while I connect something that I know will work. And it got me out of a pinch. Listen, okay, let me put it to you this way. I depend on my tools to eat. Okay? I can't have a tool that's going to take food out of my family's stomach and remove the roof from over my head. So if you have to compete, I'm saying compete on the highest level. Get the best tool for the job. If you can only buy one, save up. You all have heard my story about how I was trying to waffle between buying the CAD Equitech 200 or the 414. The Equitech was cheaper. But in my heart of hearts, I knew I wanted a 414. What did I do? I saved my money as a kid and I bought my first $1,000 microphone as a kid. Because that's where my heart was. I know it's going to give me the quality that I was used to when I went into outside studios. I mean, there was just a guarantee built into it that I didn't want to risk with someone else's money. And that's just the way it goes. I mean, because if the thing dies on a gig, what are you going to do? Give that person back them. You can't argue with them. I want my money back. No, well, let me fix. No, I want my money back. I'm going somewhere where the tools work, is what they're going to say. If they're a paying client. And I depend on my tools to work all the time, every time. That's just me. So if it's working for you, God bless you. You know, I'm not mad at you, but just anybody who's just looking to jump in, I say let the buyer beware. You don't want to be in a situation where it's hit or miss with somebody else's money in your pocket. Period. You know, so just keeping the main thing. All right. I love both of these mics. Okay, we're talking about microphones really quick. Eric Summers, I would risk Golden Age for a personal studio, maybe if that's what you need. Professionally, I would trust Behringer. Y'all are funny. He said professionally, I would trust Behringer before Golden Age. Oh, come on now, man. Y'all are hilarious. Hey, man, professional, you know, like I said, let the buyer beware, B. I don't have time to be playing around with somebody else's money in my pocket. You know, I got to eat. My lights got to stay on. I got gas to put in the car. And if you know gas is too doggone high nowadays, you know, if you got to, you know, I guess, you know, take a chance, you know, if you will, I guess Behringer is not a bad option. At least with Behringer, you have a built-in support system. With Golden Age, it craps out. It's like, okay, who do I call for this? Because what they do, they sell through a third-party distributor in America. And so getting a support ticket satisfied is probably almost next to impossible. So to your point, yes, Behringer is a better option professionally if you got to go that way. But that was a good one, man. I like that. That was real good. That was good. Okay. Oh, about Stacks. What's up? Didn't know this was live. Just woke up. Some of us have that luxury, brother. But I'm glad you checked in. Okay, so let's go. County. Okay, here's one good one from County. Know the tools and how to use them. I got some KT-EQ. Yes, and those are good EQs. The Clark Technic, those EQ, like the Pull Tech, what you call them? Next to nothing. Use them on drum. Yeah, man. You got it. Like, okay, that's a good one, Callum. That was a good one. Thanks for that. I appreciate that. Y'all look at Callum's comment. That was really good. Okay. So, Pharaoh Lola says, I have the Behringer speakers. They never let me down. No, Behringer has come a long way. No, people can shout on them, but they got to have had probably a company that has had more lawsuits brought against them than not, because they reverse engineer and copy more people. They say imitation is supposed to be the most sincerest form of flattery, but I guess if you got intellectual property, they like, I ain't having it. I'm taking you to court because you copied my stuff. But Behringer, yeah, they have come a long way, man. So I'll take maybe one or two more questions and then we're going to sign off. But I do appreciate everybody for being here today. This was a good discussion. Hopefully you got something from it. Educationally, it'll at least enlighten you as to how and why you should use data when you're examining or considering what items that you want to purchase, and go from there. But feel free to go back on the playback and in the description. Probably by tomorrow, there's going to be chapter markers, because I believe that this is important information to peruse if you're about to buy either of these products, and just using a little bit of common sense and ingenuity when it comes to spending your hard-earned dollar. You got to stretch your dollars, especially if it's only one that you can buy. You got to stretch your dollar as far as you can stretch it. So let's take two questions and then we're going to wrap it up. One or two more questions. Get him in. Okay, here's track light. No cap. Behringer batteries. No, Behringer makes some decent products. They make decent products. And like I said, they are a company that has come a long way. Okay, Marcus Garvey says, what is the best interface right now for reggae, R&B, and rap? Nowadays, you got your pick of the litter, man. You got your pick of the litter. I mean, they're the top feeders like UA, Antelope, Focusrite, and Apogee. You got your top feeders, and you got a whole list of middle and bottom feeders that are producing great products as well. So it's a matter of just listening. And if you guys get a chance, we get so caught up in getting isolated in our own space. Get out and go to a buddy studio and experience the equipment from the perspective of someone who's using it, before you purchase it. That's what I did a lot. I was blessed enough to have someone like a Dana Reed, who was a really big Nashville producer at the time. He was young like I was, but I was a struggling, still learning musician. And he took me under his wing and he took me to all these studios and facilities every time he had a production. So I was able to see the stuff in use in real time. So I had that level of education. So getting outside of your space, going somewhere else to see how other people are doing it will probably go a long way towards giving you an education and a deeper idea as to what might work for you or not. So use that as a benchmark. Okay. I wish I got the deep mind. Okay. Mr. Pirate Brain, I still love my warm moldy. Okay. And I still love mine. I think Warm is a great company. I still do. I think Warm has done more to advance the cause of home production than most companies, give them credit for. I'm not taking anything away from them, but you just get a whole horde of people that keep wanting to just separate this into two camps just because they want to pick a fight. And that's whack. That's absolutely whack. You got to use data. What's wrong with reading a spec sheet? What's wrong with trying to understand how the guy who wrote the book and why? What's wrong with using actual numbers and your ears as opposed to the opinions of God only knows how many people up here on YouTube? Because you can't just rely on just facts alone coming out of the mouth of other people. You have to say, oh, I've used this thing and it sounds great for this reason. It works for me for this reason, or it doesn't work for me for this reason. And that has to be coupled with some sort of data, because in the data is going to give you the how and the why. All the detail is in the data. So never mind what you see on YouTube about people playing better. You got to get it in your space and say, hey, man, I use this thing and it's not working for me. And this is the reason why. That's intelligence. And that's the only way. Well, see, back in the day, like I said, your choices were more narrow. I think maybe here's a problem. I think there's too much choice. And along with a lot of choice comes opinion. And a lot of the opinion is not based on any real world use. It's just people who decided to go out and do a YouTube review. And that's okay. But people like Joe Carell, who are doing usage and showing you how the unit is functioning in a pro circumstance, they're the ones who are giving you the actual fact. Because you can see it in action, Or if someone who's been using this equipment for a particular purpose, you can see it in action. They're giving you an opinion based on fact. You can't argue with someone who is born the heat of the day, as they say. You can't just go out and buy something and talk about I'm doing a YouTube review. Really? Well, I mean, can you point me in the direction of something you've done on iTunes that will demonstrate it? Can you show me in great detail how you use this thing and show me through via audio example how it was used and why? Other than that, it's strictly opinion. And everyone is entitled to their opinion. But just don't come off as though, if you're going to provide it on that level, don't come off as a person who, has this deep knowledge about why you should go out and buy something. I'll tell you how it's worked for me, as I did in the first video. I like functionality. I like to be able to connect and go. I don't have time to be fiddling around because time is money. Now, if it's just a hobby for you, then fiddling around. You ain't got nothing but time in your hands to fiddle around. I can't fiddle around with a client's money in my pocket. They're not having it. They're paying me to do a job. So, everyone's mileage may vary. So let's go. Warm Audio got hella new customers with that new. Yes, that mic is. I mean, if you like that, I always like the mic for. Again, it's an R&B mic. Whitney Houston and a whole slew of others, Luther Vandross, made it quite popular back in the 80s and the 90s. So, yeah, to that point, that is a nice microphone, though. Okay. The Gurner is going to get the last question. My brother from the other side of the pond. He says, I have the WA73-EQ, the 76, the 12, which are all very useful. The Black Lion B173 has something special, though. There it is, folks. He's a user. And you guys got to go to his YouTube page, because he sends me some stuff with some really outstanding musicians over there in the UK. So if you get a chance, just skedaddle over to his YouTube page and check out some of the things that he's done. Okay. And the Pharaoh Lord says, I wish I could afford the expensive gear, but I'm broke. Hey, yo, everybody pockets light nowadays. Yo, inflation is crazy. crazy. So you are in with good company, my brother. So with that said, listen, I've been blabbing long enough. It's been 1 hour and 16 minutes. Hopefully you guys found this useful and educational. I will put chapter markers in the description going forward. So with that in mind, I have to say thanks for watching. Thanks for stopping by. Thanks for tuning in. If you haven't done so already, please subscribe and don't forget to say hello to your families for me. Take care, guys.